The glow of her phone screen lit up Eleanor Ramos's face as she lay on her side on the thin mattress she shared with her youngest child. The humid Cebu night clung to the air, the whir of a single electric fan doing little to push it away. Ellie's fingers danced across her phone, swiping, liking, and smiling when she got a message from a man named Robert. He looked older, gray in the beard, soft in the face, but his profile said divorced, Christian, and looking for something real. Perfect. She bit her lip, tapped the record button, and sent a voice message. "Hi, Bob. You seem like such a kind man. I don't usually talk to foreigners, but something about you feels safe." It was Elias, of course. She talked to dozens of men, sometimes 3 or 4 at once, but Bob didn't need to know that. What mattered was setting the hook, and Ellie was good at that. In the corner of the room, her mother Lola Remy sat fanning herself with a piece of cardboard. "You found another one?" she asked, not looking up. Ellie smirked. "He's American, works in air conditioning, divorced, lonely. Looks like he's got a pension too." "Good," Lola replied flatly. "We need to pay the Meralco bill this week." Ellie's 2 kids, ages 3 and 5, slept peacefully beside her. To Bob, they would be innocent victims, her little angels abandoned by a cruel man. But in reality, both had different fathers, neither of whom were in the picture, and one of them was still legally her husband. She didn't plan on sharing that. Bob responded within minutes. "Hi, Ellie. It's great to hear from you. You have such a sweet voice. I'd love to get to know you better. I've been feeling a little lonely since my divorce. I'm just looking for someone real, too." Ellie's smile widened. "You'll find someone," she replied, then quickly followed with, "Maybe even me." Within 2 days, he was asking for a video call. Within a week, he was sending her $100 just to help out with groceries. He wanted to make sure her kids were eating well. She used a portion of the money to buy snacks and school supplies, just enough to show Bob on camera. The rest? Loaded onto Gcash and used to pay off borrowed money, buy a new dress, and send some to Mira, her cousin, who she owed for babysitting. Mira raised an eyebrow when Ellie handed her the pesos. "This new one really likes you, huh?" Ellie shrugged. "He's sweet. Talks a lot about finding the one. Wants a quiet life. Family." Mira rolled her eyes. "They all want that, until they don't." Ellie didn't reply. She was already back on her phone, typing out a long message to Bob about how hard life had been, how she had given up on love until he came along. "I don't know why," she wrote, "but I feel like I can trust you. You're different." He replied instantly, "I feel the same, Ellie. Maybe this is the start of something beautiful." Ellie looked up at the ceiling fan, then over at her sleeping children. She imagined air conditioning, a clean bed, a quiet life somewhere far away. Iowa? Maybe. She put her phone on her chest, closed her eyes, and whispered to herself, "I'm getting out of here, one way or another." Ellie positioned the phone on a makeshift stand, an old mug, 2 stacked books, and a folded sock to prop it just right. She adjusted the angle to show the cleanest corner of the room, a small table with neatly stacked plastic containers and a tiny vase with fake flowers. Her children sat in view, the youngest in her lap, the other distracted by a tablet she had borrowed from Mira for the call. The WhatsApp ringtone buzzed. Incoming video call from Bob. She took a deep breath and answered. Bob's face appeared on the screen, round, flushed, and visibly excited. "Ellie, wow, it's so good to finally see you in real time." Ellie smiled softly. "Hi, Bob. This is my daughter, Andy, and that's Gabriel over there." Bob waved with both hands. "Hi, sweethearts. You're both so cute. Ellie, you didn't tell me they were this adorable." Ellie laughed. "They're my life." She had practiced this tone, soft, a little sad, humble, but hopeful. It worked like magic. And Bob? He was all in. His gaze lingered on her face like she was a miracle on a dim screen. "You're even more beautiful than your pictures," he said, his voice thick with sincerity. Ellie tilted her head. "You really think so? Sometimes I feel like maybe I'm not good enough for someone like you." Bob's face grew serious. "Don't say that, Ellie. I think you're everything I've been looking for." She lowered her eyes just slightly and whispered, "I wish you were here." Silence. Then Bob said it. "I've been thinking about coming out there." Ellie's heart skipped, not with emotion, but with calculation. She kept her face warm and still. "Really? You would come all the way to see me?" "I would. I want to. You mean a lot to me, Ellie. More than I ever thought someone could again." She blinked twice, leaned closer to the screen, and touched her heart. "That means so much to me, Bob. I never thought someone would care this way about a girl like me. From here." They stayed on the call for over an hour. Bob talked about Iowa, his small house, his love for grilling in the backyard, and how he was tired of fake American dating culture. Ellie nodded, listened, offered bits of her own carefully crafted story, how she worked hard to take care of her kids, how she lived with her mother because she couldn't afford to move out, how her children's father had disappeared after she got pregnant. A clean story. Sad, believable, and just vague enough. That night, as she was cleaning up after dinner, Mira leaned against the doorframe of their tiny kitchen. "So," Mira said, "you got him to say he's coming?" Ellie nodded, rinsing dishes in a basin. "He said he's looking at flights next month, wants to meet the kids, wants to see our life." Mira raised an eyebrow. "You going to tell him the truth before he comes?" Ellie didn't look up. "Why would I?" Mira scoffed. "Because you're still married, and the second baby's not even from that guy." Ellie turned, water dripping from her fingers. "He doesn't need to know any of that. He's not coming here to play detective. He's coming here to fall in love." Mira folded her arms. "You're playing a dangerous game, Ellie." "No," Ellie replied calmly. "I'm playing a smart one. And I'm going to win." She turned back to the dishes as Mira watched, a flicker of something sour behind her eyes. The Mactan Cebu International Airport buzzed with heat, honking taxis, and the sound of trolleys being pushed across tiled floors. Ellie adjusted her blouse one more time, making sure her neckline was just modest enough for a first impression, but still flattering. She clutched a small welcome sign drawn by her daughter, written in crayon, "Welcome, Bob." Her heart didn't flutter. Not with nerves, it pounded with strategy. She had spent hours planning what to say, how to look, when to smile. Standing beside her were her kids and Lola Remy, who wore a simple dress and a quiet expression that suggested she knew the performance well. The children were clean, fed, and prepped with lines. "Hi, Bob. We missed you. Thank you, Bob." It was humid. Ellie's palms were damp. Then she saw him. Bob Turner, realer than ever, emerged from the arrivals gate wheeling a single suitcase, wearing a Hawaiian shirt, cargo shorts, and wide eyes that drank in everything. He looked older than his profile, but his smile was boyish and full of hope. "Ellie!" he called. She beamed and rushed toward him. They embraced, tight, but awkward. His arms wrapped around her like he'd known her forever. Hers, not quite. "You're even more beautiful in person," Bob said, holding her at arm's length, eyes glistening. She touched his cheek. "And you came all this way. I can't believe it." Bob bent down to greet the children. "You must be Andy, and you're Gabriel. I've heard so much about you." The kids smiled on cue. "Hi, Bob," they chimed. Lola nodded politely. "Hello, sir. Thank you for coming." Bob stood tall and took a deep breath. This already feels like home." Ellie looped her arm through his. "Come on, let's get you settled." The house wasn't impressive, just a small structure tucked into a narrow street with a cracked concrete floor and an uneven roof, but it had been scrubbed clean for his arrival. A fan was placed by the guest bed, a mosquito net was hung. He didn't complain. He looked around with wonder, as if he had stepped into another world. "It's humble," he said, "but it feels warm. It feels real." Ellie placed her hand over his. "It's our life. I'm just glad you're part of it now." Over the next week, they played house. Bob bought groceries. He took Ellie and the kids to a beachside restaurant. He paid for a small air conditioning unit to be installed in their room. He was patient, kind, and visibly in love. He even spoke of the future. "Ellie," he said one evening, lying beside her in the room he paid to cool, I want to marry you. Ellie blinked, then smiled. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She wrapped her arms around him, whispered yes, and kissed his forehead. But outside the window, under the soft buzz of cicadas, a different storm was brewing. Mira had seen enough. Seen the gifts, the dinners, the way Bob looked at Ellie like she was salvation. She lit a cigarette and watched them from a distance. Why her? She thought. Why not me? The answer didn't matter. What mattered now was this. Ellie had lied too well, and it was time someone told Bob the truth. Mira sat on the concrete stoop outside the house, flipping through old photos on her phone. Pictures of her with different foreign men, snapshots of conversations filled with heart emojis, I miss you texts and promises never kept. And she had been in this game longer than Ellie. She taught her how to build a story, how to get a man hooked, how to play the role of the sweet, struggling mother. And yet, here she was, still stuck in Cebu, while Ellie was being promised a life in America with a man who wanted to make her his wife. A bitter wind curled around Mira's chest as she lit another cigarette and stared at the closed window where Ellie and Bob were laughing behind glass. She could hear the sounds of their new air conditioning unit, a gift Mira hadn't even been offered in her better days. She opened Facebook Messenger and scrolled to a name she hadn't typed in years. Jomar Pascual. He was Ellie's husband. Not that Bob knew that. She tapped the mic and recorded a voice message. Hey Jomar, long time. I got a story you're going to want to hear. Later that night, Mira appeared in the kitchen just as Bob was reaching for a bottle of water. He smiled, friendly as ever. Hey Mira, everything okay? She nodded. Yeah, just thinking. Bob tilted his head. Thinking? She leaned against the counter. Bob, can I ask you something? Of course. What did Ellie tell you about the kids' fathers? Bob's brows lifted slightly. That the father of her daughter ran off when she was pregnant, and that Gabriel, she didn't say much, just that it was a short relationship. Why? Mira folded her arms. Did she mention she was married? The question hung in the air like smoke. Bob frowned. What do you mean? She's still married, Bob, legally. She never got divorced. Her husband's name is Jomar. He works in Bohol now, I think. Still alive. Still technically her husband. Bob blinked, confused. That can't be right. It is, and Gabriel's not his. That's another guy. Different story. Bob stepped back slowly, as if the floor had shifted beneath him. Why are you telling me this? Mira shrugged, though her voice trembled with emotion. Because I don't want to see you get hurt. You're a good man, and you're being lied to. He didn't respond. He walked past her, through the narrow hallway, and stepped into the back room where Ellie sat with her children. One asleep, one watching cartoons. She smiled at him. Hey, babe, everything okay? Bob stared at her. His voice was quiet. Ellie, are you still married? The color drained from her face. What? Are you still married? Ellie glanced at the door, at the children, at the fan buzzing in the corner. Then she said nothing, because silence, sometimes, says everything. Bob turned and walked out. Outside, Mira stood in the shadows, arms crossed. She thought she'd feel satisfaction, vindication, relief. But watching Bob leave, with his heart cracked wide open, she only felt the bitter burn of victory that didn't taste sweet. Bob sat alone on a concrete bench just outside the neighborhood convenience store. The glow of a flickering streetlight buzzed above him as tricycles hummed by, their engines fading into the humid Cebu night. In his hand was his phone, opened to the Facebook profile Mira had shown him, Jomar Pascual, with photos dated just 2 years ago of him and Ellie at a municipal office, smiling with their arms around each other. The caption, 1 year married today, through everything, still strong. Bob's fingers trembled. It wasn't the marriage that stunned him the most. It was the thought of everything Ellie had said, the lies, so smooth, so rehearsed. He had believed every word, that she'd been abandoned, that she was just a young woman trying to survive. A message popped up from Mira. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but now you know." He didn't respond. Instead, he stood, his mind swirling, and walked back to the house. Ellie was waiting just inside the door. Her arms were crossed, her face set. "You talked to Mira," she said flatly. Bob nodded. "She told me everything. About Jomar, about the second father, about how nothing you told me was true." Ellie stepped forward. "Bob, listen." "No, you listen," he interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "You told me you were abandoned. You told me your daughter's father left when you got pregnant. You told me you were free to marry." "I am free," she snapped. "Jamar is gone. He doesn't care. He has a new girlfriend, a new life. But you're still married, Ellie, and you lied about your son's father too. Why? Why not just tell me the truth?" Ellie's voice cracked. "Because if I told you the truth, you would have left before we even met." Bob stepped back, heart pounding. "You don't get to manipulate people like that." "I had to," she said, her voice turning desperate. "You don't understand what it's like here. I live in a house with 2 kids, no husband, no job, and a mother who depends on me. I don't have the luxury of being honest, Bob." Tears welled in her eyes, but Bob wasn't moved. Not anymore. "You were going to marry me under false pretenses." "I was going to love you," she shouted. "Isn't that what matters? You would have taken care of me, of my children. We could have had a life." Bob shook his head slowly. "You don't get to decide what kind of life I want with lies." Ellie's voice dropped to a whisper. "So that's it then? You're just going to walk away?" "Yes," Bob said quietly. "I deserve better." Something in her broke. Her expression twisted into something dark and unrecognizable. "You think you can just walk away from me? After everything I told you? Everything I gave you?" Bob's stomach turned. "Ellie, I'll kill you," she whispered. "I swear to God, if you leave me, I will kill you." The room fell into a terrifying silence. Bob's eyes searched hers, hoping for a sign that it was a joke, a moment of shame, something. But all he saw was fire. He stepped back, his voice low. "I'm going to leave now. You should think about what you've just said." "You'll regret this," she said through gritted teeth. "You think someone like me gets another chance? You were it. You were the ticket out." Bob walked away, and Ellie stood frozen, her fists clenched at her sides, watching the future she had built on lies collapse into smoke. The house was dark. The fan was off. The children were asleep. Ellie stood in the kitchen, her hand resting on the chipped wooden handle of a long kitchen knife. Her chest rose and fell in sharp bursts as the last of her composure evaporated into the thick, tense air. Bob had packed a small bag. He was scheduled to fly out in the morning. But he wasn't going to wait. He wanted out now. He moved quietly through the narrow hallway, clutching his duffel bag, careful not to wake the kids. His phone, passport, and wallet were zipped tightly in an inner pocket. The hotel near the airport had sent a private car. All he had to do was reach the road, but as he stepped into the kitchen, she was there, blocking the exit, holding the knife. "Going somewhere?" she asked, her voice soft, too soft. Bob froze. "Ellie, put that down." Her eyes were glassy, wide, unblinking. "You think you're just going to leave me here, after everything?" "I'm not staying where I'm being threatened," he said carefully. "You need help. This isn't you." "You don't know me," she hissed. "You know what I let you see, the version of me you wanted to fall in love with, the version that made you feel like a savior." Bob slowly set his bag down. His voice was calm, even. "You're upset, but this won't solve anything. Put the knife down. Let me leave." Ellie took a step forward. The blade caught the dim light. "If you leave, I lose everything." "And if I stay," he said gently, "you lose yourself." That line pierced something in her. Her hand trembled, her jaw clenched, the blade dipped slightly. Then her breath hitched, and she let out a sharp sob. The knife clattered to the floor. Bob didn't move for a moment, just watched her sink to her knees and cover her face, shoulders heaving with the kind of grief that came from losing not just love, but control. He picked up his bag and moved past her, quietly, carefully. Outside, the air was thick with dew. The car waited at the corner. The driver glanced up, saw the look on Bob's face, and said nothing, just opened the door. As the car pulled away, Bob looked back once and saw Ellie standing in the doorway, barefoot, arms limp at her sides, staring out like a ghost watching a dream vanish into the night. The air in the house felt heavier now. The air conditioning unit Bob had installed sat silently on the wall, unplugged, forgotten. A week had passed since he left, and the rooms that once buzzed with cautious hope now lay still. Ellie sat at the edge of the bed, her elbows on her knees, staring at her cracked phone screen. Her children played quietly in the corner. Lola Remy moved about like a ghost, saying little, her face tight with disappointment. Bob hadn't called, not once. He hadn't messaged, hadn't checked in to ask about the kids. Nothing. And why would he? She had ruined it. Not just the chance to leave, but the illusion of being someone better, someone Bob could love. And now she was here again, right where she started. Broke, alone, trapped. She scrolled through her messages. The men she had strung along while focusing on Bob were long gone, unmatched, blocked, forgotten. All but one. She tapped open an old thread, a man from Michigan, gray-haired, widowed, lonely. He had messaged her months ago. "Hey, beautiful, just checking in. I hope you're okay. I still think about you." Ellie stared at the message for a long time. Then she smiled. It was small at first, then wider, colder. She opened her dating app. Her fingers moved fast, uploading a new profile picture. Soft makeup, lighting just right, her holding her daughter on her lap. Her bio was rewritten. Simple Filipina mom, just looking for love and loyalty. I don't want much, just someone who won't lie to me. She added a few photos, typed a few more lines. Then she copied a message she had used a dozen times before and pasted it into the chat with the man from Michigan. "Hi, babe. I was thinking about you today. Do you still believe in second chances?" She hit send, and just like that, the hunt began again. The end.